Oh, hey there, Lightworkers. Welcome to Million Dollar Lightworker. I'm your host, Joeaux Robey, and I have one big mission, as you probably know, and that's to help 100 Lightworkers grow their business so that they can make a big impact in the world by having a seven-figure business. Now, today's guest, I'm just sitting here waiting for her, is Emily William. And she's someone who is walking that path of total grace and power. She's a success coach, an author, a speaker, the founder of the I Heart My Life movement. Yeah. And she's known for helping high-achieving women take big leaps. And get this, she lives by the mantra of anything is possible. And if you've been around me for any amount of time, you know that my mantra is everything is possible. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Oh, there she is. Emily, welcome to Million Dollar Lightworker. I'm so excited to have you here. And I know you've moved heaven and earth to be able to be on the show this morning. I really appreciate your willingness, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So if it's okay with you, I know you have limited time, and I want to just dive into possibility because it's one of my favorite words. You say anything is possible, and I say everything is possible. What does that mindset really mean to you, Emily, and how did you come to believe it?
Thank you for asking that question. I know possibility is a big thing for both of us. And I was blessed to grow up with two parents that always told me that anything was possible and that I could do anything that I wanted when it came to career and life. Little did they know that I would end up moving to a whole nother country. And I don't think that was part of, their definition of what was possible. But they really instilled that in me and taught me that kind of the sky was the limit. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He still is. And so I grew up with that mindset. And, it really was cemented when I decided to turn the car around literally on the drive there and not go to grad school and move to London, England on a complete whim, which opened up so many doors for me, enabled me to meet my husband. I lived there for over 10 years, and it was just a huge turning point in my life and really showed me what happens when you follow your heart and you trust your intuition, because the sky's the limit.
I love that, and actually, if that was 10 years ago, that was before this whole thing with remote work, right? So that was pretty gutsy to do that at that time.
Yeah, that was 2010, so 15 years ago. And I had no, reason to think that it would work out because realistically, because, no one in my family had ever moved to another country. I really didn't have any plans. I just applied for a master's in nonfiction writing and moved with my 4 suitcases, didn't know anyone. And so, yeah, it was looking back, thinking about my little 2.5-year-old daughter doing that now. I'm like, oh gosh, how did my parents handle that? But, they trusted that. I mean, at least they didn't let me know if they were worried, but, ultimately there was a level of trust there and a desire for me to be happy. And they knew that I wasn't happy living in my hometown. And so that, although it was risky, it was something I wanted. And so, they were supportive.
Well, and being parents, my husband and I, my bonus daughter, his daughter, as I said earlier, lives in London now. So I can tell you as parents, it is like you want your kids to follow their heart and do what they dream of, but it's a long way away. So I can empathize with probably how your parents felt, like exciting, loving to see you take that step into possibility, but at the same time going, oh my gosh, London is a long way away for us. So I totally get it.
My mom literally told me yesterday, she said, I used to pray that you wouldn't meet anyone. And now they're obsessed with my husband. And he actually is a coach in my dad's company. And, we're very intertwined and we can't imagine our family without him. But that was literally her prayer, which we had a big discussion about that because it's so interesting. When we pray for things or pray for things for our kids or hope for things for our kids, sometimes we forget they know best and they have that intuition and only they know and only we know what's really possible for us.
And again, like this is a great conversation because I can relate to that because my daughter actually married a Spaniard. And so now they've had their first baby, my first grandchild.
Oh,
and,
congratulations.
And they're talking about, raising her in Spain. And so quietly, I mean, I will admit that I'm praying that, maybe they'll see things differently and it might be better for them to make a different choice. But you know what? In the long run, we just want our children to be happy. That's the main thing. We can adjust our life easily to do whatever they decide to do. So one of the things you talk about, Emily, is doing less to succeed more. And I want to tell you that I too grew up with an entrepreneur father who basically told me I could do anything that I could dream of, basically. But here's the difference. He said, you can achieve anything with hard work. And this is something that I see a lot of in my generation. What do you think is the biggest misconception people have about that concept? And I want to hear more about doing less to succeed more.
Yeah. And I had the same thought. My dad had the same hard work mantra. He used to get up at 4 a.m. He had meetings with his team at 6 a.m. And yet the difference was, I think the difference that I want to point out at least is that he was always very present with us when he was there. And he was always there in the evenings. He was always there on the weekends. And so I didn't feel like I was neglected. I didn't feel like his work was more important than us. That was just how he operated. And frankly, it's still how he operates. And so I did grow up seeing that hard work ethic displayed for me, but I also saw a level of presence displayed for me. And so I think for me in the beginning of building my business, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. I remember at one point telling my coach, I was like, this is working financially, but I really want to be able to see my husband. Like that would be really nice. And so recognizing that there were some boundaries that I wanted to put on the way that I build my business. Luckily, I got that sort of insight and that clue very quickly. And so I decided to offer more programs and different products within my company that would allow me to have more time freedom. Now, I'm definitely not perfect of that because I am really obsessed with the work that I do. And actually, I've had lots of ups and downs with this. I think my daughter has made the biggest difference in terms of me being more present and being really cautious with what I say yes to and creating more boundaries. But ultimately, it comes down to having an abundant mindset and understanding that you can achieve your goals in a way that works for you and a schedule that works for you. And that, when we get into hustle and burnout and overworking, that's ultimately coming from a place of lack. And so I really try and kind of check myself and get myself into an abundant mindset, even when it comes to calendar and scheduling, but especially, what I offer in my company and also what I say yes to.
So I know that you went through, like so many of us did, from debt to 7 figures. Like you made that leap. What did you find were the things that you chose to stop doing because there's that feeling of wanting to get there, right? And seeing that it was possible, but it sounds like you were really good at understanding the difference between pushing and allowing it to flow. Did you find like there was specific things that you chose to stop, or did you mostly base it around your family?
Great question. So I think, again, this is something that I've learned the hard way. In the beginning, there were times where, yes, I wanted to see my husband, but I also have had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Although I went to 7 figures in 18 months very quickly, I'm not sure that that was actually the best way to do things because years later, everything ended up crashing and burning. And I've shared this story publicly recently. And I just recognized that I wasn't able to hold that container and that level of wealth and abundance. And so when I rebuilt my business, I made some different decisions around not just the structure, but like I said, my mindset and the way in which I was looking at things, and really focused on how can I create a better foundation, more longevity, also like tap into myself and increase my capacity to receive, but also to hold more abundance from a spiritual perspective. And so I just made some tangible decisions decisions around, am I going to who are the clients I want to work with, especially that, because that was a big drain on my energy. I used to just allow everyone into my programs, but getting more specific around that. I also decided that I wanted to launch a new company. It's a peer mastermind, essentially, where I'm surrounded by amazing women who are doing big things in the world to not only inspire me, but to hold me accountable, to be people I can learn from, see what other people are doing to stay more grounded, to not be in burnout, et cetera. And then frankly, my secret weapon, I think, is my husband, because he's a certified high performance coach. And so we are very open and honest with each other about what works and what doesn't. If he sees me going to the bad place of overworking, burnout, striving, hustling in a way that's not healthy, he, has full permission to step in and be like, this is what I'm seeing. He's also really amazing at giving me supplements. So I've put a big focus on my health. Even a year or so ago, I had a doctor tell me that I'm the type of person where I literally have to exercise, do cardio rather, every single day, at least 15 minutes. And so that's been amazing for stress levels and anxiety. So, those are some of the simple things that I did, but I think it's a mindset, that shift that you have to make overall around you have enough time. You don't need to operate from a place of stress and pressure to get the results that you want.
I love that. I love that. And I want to circle back to something that you were talking about, because I also experienced this, crashing and burning. Getting to a place in your life that you felt success and then having it all tumble down. And one of the things that I noticed in that experience is that once you've built something, you know how to build it. And so you're able to build it even quicker than you built it before. What would you say to people out there that have also experienced that crash and burn, because at first you feel it's only human to feel a sense of failure, but then for me anyway, when I realized it wasn't failure, it was just feedback. I learned so much in that experience. How would you advise people who go through that same experience?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I actually have a lot of people behind the scenes asking me about this. And again, I've shared this publicly, but it's really interesting how many people come out of the woodwork to tell you that they had the same experience and they're feeling so much shame from that low point and that crash. And I think overall, I had to recognize, just like every other part of my journey, that this was happening for a reason. And I could either wallow in it, allow it to keep me stuck, or I could use it as fuel and use it as a part of my story to support other people. And I've known that, from the very beginning. I'm sure you're the same. People have resonated with my story. And I just felt like this was another chapter where I was going to be able to share and be able to support people who were going through something similar. And so, even it's a really long story, but basically I had this big client issue, ended up in an illegal issue. I lost over $250,000. I was sued by American Express. And I remember being served papers by American Express at my front door, holding my 6-week-old baby and thinking to myself, okay, well, this sucks. And this is going to make a really amazing story someday. And so I had gotten myself to a place mindset wise, just in a level of trust that I never even anticipated I would be able to kind of muster up, and just an inner knowing that although it didn't feel good and it was so challenging and many times, debilitating, I knew that it was happening for a reason. It was happening for me. So that's the biggest thing that I would say, is just tune into a level of trust in your in inner knowing, in your purpose, what you're meant for, that this is going to support you in ways you can't even see yet, and also support others if you choose, to share it and to use it as a story. And that's what I've chosen to do, which has been super healing and helpful.
I love that. I found something so similar. I was so afraid to tell people what I had been through. And as you said, there's so much shame, right? But the minute that, for me, it was a really weird thing. I actually did it on stage in front of hundreds of people. I just got into telling the story. And what I learned was that the minute I told the story, that the energy went away from it. Just sharing it with the community took the edge off of it. And here was the important thing, and I'm hearing this with you as well, is that it gave other people permission to come forward and also to release that and experience a healing over it. And I think it's so important for people out there to know that, because there is no shame in, having made, mistakes. I also got served by American Express. It's so funny.
Really?
It's like, yeah, not quite the same amount of money as you did, but probably a similar thing. But I think it's so important that people understand that there is no failure. It's just good feedback. And when you follow your heart in that way, you actually make a comeback faster and so much bigger than the place that you were at before. And Emily, I love this conversation around money and spirituality, because there's so many people in the spiritual world, and maybe you've found this as well, that really struggle with charging money for their gifts. And it's one of the reasons that I call my program the Million Dollar Lightworker, because I just want to talk about money right up front, because as you know, it takes money to make money. And if you want to have a huge impact in the world, you really get the opportunity to figure out how to get those resources so that you can spread, your impact across the planet. Can you talk a little bit about your perspective on the importance of making a living and charging enough for your gifts?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is my favorite topic. A lot of my work centers around money mindset and creating your wealthiest identity. And I learned really quickly that, number one, I had no idea how to sell. Number two, I had a big issue with talking about money because it wasn't something that was talked about when I was growing up. So there was this period in the beginning of my business where I had 54 no's in a row. So 54 people said no to working with me. And the main reason was that they didn't have the money. And so when I was on those initial calls, those calls ended very abruptly. And I was like, okay, no problem. Thanks for your time. Bye. But what I realized was that was not in service to them. And so I started being really open with the money conversation on those calls. And so I literally asked people, do you want me to help you find the money? And so we'd go into a big conversation around their finances. Sometimes they had a 401k. Sometimes they had savings. Sometimes they had something they could sell. Sometimes they had a parent or spouse that they could borrow from. And so I literally helped them find the money. And that kind of snowballed into me doing a lot of work, not just on myself, but helping especially female entrepreneurs with their money mindset and their money blocks. And especially when it came to charging and sales. And another big component of my work is desires and really tuning into the life that you want and what your fully expressed life looks like. And so I truly believe that unless we are financially supported, it's very hard for us to live our purpose, to live out that fully expressed life, and to serve others to the degree that we are born to serve. And so I really help people to rewire any of the limiting beliefs that are coming up, that they're not deserving of wealth, that they're not meant for wealth. And honestly, sometimes when they just write out everything that they want and the purpose for the money, that's very grounding for them. And they can see, oh, okay, so I do have a purpose for the money. And it's not just, the new wardrobe and the Range Rover, although that's great and you're allowed to have that. It's other things that are really going to serve the world. And I'm sure just like me, you work with a lot of heart-centered individuals who want to have a big impact. And so when they literally can see step by step, like, this is what I want the money for, it really helps open their eyes. And I find that money also flows quicker because money loves a purpose.
I love that. That's such a great answer. Your website mentions money mindset and community as the two main pillars of your work. How do you help people build those into habits rather than just having one-off breakthroughs?
So, yeah, I mean, for me, the mindset piece, the money mindset piece is huge. And just getting aware of what your limits are, what your mindset limiting beliefs are, is massive for most people. And then starting to shift them. I have courses, I have my membership, I have my coaching, but really just that awareness is the big thing. And I also find, especially with women, being in community is also such a big influence on your level of success. And I think for me in the very beginning, I've always been an introvert. And so I didn't join a business coaching program to be a part of a community, but it was one of the things that made the most difference to me. And so when I had my business, crash and burn. Like I said, I started up my own community of peers, and that made such an impact in my life. And so I'm really all about, whether you're an introvert or not, reaching out and getting the support that you need, whether it's from a mentor or a group, or you go to retreats or events. Recognizing that you're not alone can be so helpful, especially when you're on a growth journey. And, just practicing even being vulnerable. Like I'm in my peer mastermind, and although I'm not a coach in there, like I'm in there all the time. I'm asking questions. I'm sharing vulnerably. And I think so often we think we have to be perfect. We think we have to have it all together, but that mindset is very limiting. And it's actually so amazing to connect with other people. And when you're vulnerable and you let your guard down, it's so much easier for that to happen.
Yeah, perfection will actually hold you back. And when you're in a community, you just have such a great sounding board. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I really loved too is choosing who those people are that you work with, choosing who those people are in the community, because it's so important that you surround yourself with the support of people who are going to lift you up. There's plenty of people out there that will shoot down your dreams, but it's great to have those people around you that will actually lift you up.
Yeah, and that's what I found from the very beginning. Even having mentors that had done what I wanted to do was so inspiring and just showed me what was possible. And I think a lot of people allow jealousy to get the best of them. And that's also one of my practices. I love to talk to people about jealousy because we've been taught that it's wrong, but actually it can be very clarifying and it can show you exactly what it is that you want to create. And so there's a lot of power in that. But a lot of times, especially women, allow that to stop them or hold them back from making connections, or allow it to mean that because somebody else has done something, they can't do it. But actually, it's the complete opposite.
That's fascinating. I hadn't really thought about it in that way, Emily, but you're right. Jealousy, and it'll show up in your body first, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that one of my mentors told me to do a few years ago was to find a mentor and choose somebody who I was actually, I won't use the word jealous, but who I was actually afraid to approach because it was more of an intimidation, right? Of this feeling of being smaller than them. And what I found was that when you find these people, these mentors, they're actually so touched that you want to have them mentor you. And so just putting the context together between jealousy and intimidation, another feeling that can come up when you're around people that are doing things that you want to do, but you don't quite have that confidence or you don't quite have that trust in yourself yet. So
for sure.
So let's go back to the phrase. We only have a few more minutes here, and I really want to honor your time. I'm so grateful for you coming on the show today and talking to me. Let's wrap it up with when everything is possible or anything is possible, right? How do you stay focused on what's actually right in front of you right now rather than getting overwhelmed by all the possibilities?
That's a great question for me. Because like you, I'm sure you want to do all the things. You have a million ideas a day. And for me, one of the things that's been super helpful for me lately is ChatGPT. Regardless of what you think about AI, it's been amazing for me to just brain dump all of my ideas as a visionary and get clear on the path that I get to take to get to them. And it's also been helpful for me to say, one of my dreams is to have a stationery line. So that's not something I'm doing right now, but I can see it as a part of the brand. And so I can say, okay, well, that's going to happen 6 years from now or whatever, and just put a time frame on the things that are my big ideas, the big picture ideas, and also create a plan for moving towards the things that are right now, important and happening in this moment. And I think sometimes as visionaries, it can feel challenging to be in the future and also be here in the present moment. And I'm not saying be in the future the majority of the time, but I like to know that there's a place price for the thing that I'm working towards, and there's a time frame for it, and it's not just like off in the ether. There's an actual like energy that's going towards that, even if it's like only 2% of the time I'm thinking about it, and the rest of the time I'm in the goals that are happening, a year from now or present day. And so I think having like a slot for it has been really important for me. So I feel like it is something I'm working towards. I haven't forgotten about it, and it's going to happen. And then being in the moment with all the other things going on the majority of the time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm 100% with you. I love to have a plan. I like to do annual planning. I like to do 3-year planning. I like to do quarterly planning. But I also allow myself to be in flow.
Yeah.
I find that, there's a part of your brain that likes to have that big picture, but then, being in the moment and allowing the opportunities that come in sometimes are so much better than what you originally planned. And so
For sure.
I love that answer.
And I think a lot of people now, we're not planning as far in advance. And so I think sometimes we make ourselves wrong for not having the like launch planned out, 2 years in advance or even 6 months in advance, but things are moving so quickly that you actually need to be a bit more fluid and be okay with that. And I think, it also pertains to how I structure my week. There's a couple of days a week where I am very structured and I'm doing things like this and coaching calls. And then the other days are my creative days where I'm writing or I'm creating posts or whatever it may be, or allowing myself more spaciousness. And I find that really works for me because I'm not the type of person that can be, like, as an introvert, that can be talking to people 24/7. And so I'm not going to pretend that and run my business in that way.
Yeah. Well, Emily, thank you so much for being such a bright example of what's possible and talking to people, assisting people, and encouraging people to stop playing small and start trusting the deeper calling inside of us. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been rich with truth, practicality, and soul. And before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, if you go to iheartmylife.com, there's tons of courses, programs, opportunities there. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Emily Williams.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much. Let's do this again sometimes. I'd really like to get to know you even more.
Same. I feel like we could talk for a lot longer. So thank you for working with my schedule. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Talk soon. Didn't you love that? I mean, I have so much in common with this woman. I want to talk to her again really soon. And I want to remind you that our mission here is to elevate 100 lightworkers to $1 million impact. And we're looking for businesses that are rooted in service, aligned with spirit, and deeply transformational. So if you believe this is you, then reach out to us. You can book a 20-minute session with me at Soulpreneur.com. That's SOULO, and it'll be on somewhere around this video, /discovery. Let's talk soon and see how we can get you to be $1 million lightworker.